Welcome, I'm Jack D and welcome to Have I Got News For You. In the news this week, at the Labour Party conference, Gordon Brown's speech comes to an end just as John Prescott is about to complete the first box of Sudoku. Stockwell police are forced to apologise again as PC Atkinson arrests yet another member of the public for looking a bit Brazilian. And in London, Kate Moss's nephew finally finds out what his auntie keeps in her special tin. On Ian Hislop's team is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Sport newspaper, who recently fell foul of the Advertising Standards Authority. I think it was the word newspaper that they had a problem with. Please welcome Tony Livesey. And with Paul Merton tonight, a television presenter who said in a recent interview, "I'm so short-sighted that when I read autocue, I need the words so big that they're broken down into single syllables that fill the screen." Well, that's just stupid. Please welcome Claudia Winkelman. We start with round one. Ian and Tony, who do you fancy?
Oh, Tory Panto, Grumpy.
SAS there.
Yep. Doc.
KFC there.
Fatty. And Dopey.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Puff Daddy, as he's now known.
Oh, look. What's going on there, Tony?
I've no idea, because I'd just like to be the first member of the panel to say I don't do drugs anyway.
Not at all?
No.
How on earth do you write the Sunday Sport?
I don't know.
So, according to Telegraph, the Tory leadership first-round ballot will be decided by sudden death.
Good.
Yeah, my money's on Ken Clark. David Cameron is the favourite at the moment to win. But what question did he duck earlier this week?
He was asked if he smoked marijuana. He said, "I've had a perfectly normal university experience," which most people would assume would be rotten tutu and a lot of time in the student bar. Yeah. But I think it's code. I think it's code for "I tried a spliff."
Ken Clark didn't do the drugs, he just enjoyed the munchies afterwards, that's all right.
According to the...
What are munchies?
They're little creatures in The Wizard of Oz.
So, David Davis was front-runner until last week, wasn't he? What went wrong?
He made a very, very dull speech.
There were a couple of clues that people were following, actually, before he made his speech. ITN, in particular. Here's a report from the news the day before his big conference speech.
David Davis, the favourite, has some work to do when he speaks tomorrow. He addressed a fringe last night, and many who listened weren't terribly impressed. Exactly.
So what's been holding Davis back, according to his spokesman?
He didn't rehearse the speech at all, and he had to do that sort of little gesture at the end to get people to stand up.
Which can be misinterpreted, can't it?
Yeah.
There was one particular phrase that I was looking for that his spokesman said that his classically English reluctance to discuss his feelings had got in the way, although his classically English reluctance doesn't seem to extend as far as his upbringing, as you can see here in this clip.
I lived on a council estate. I was brought up by a single mother. I grew up on a council estate. I still remember how delighted we were when we were given a council house. Now, my mum was single. I was persuaded to go back to the council estate where I used to live. Because I grew up on a council estate. I come from a relatively lowly background. An awful lot's been made of that in the last week.
Of course, out of fairness, we should also mention Liam Fox. Hello, Liam. And finally, which big beast of the Tory jungle was out partying on Thursday night?
Mrs T.
Oh, right, yeah.
She was 80.
Not long to go.
Did anyone see Margaret Thatcher's official birthday photograph?
Yeah, it was lovely, wasn't it?
Wasn't it nice?
Oh.
Yeah, should we have a look at it now?
Yeah.
Can we have a look?
It was by Patrick Litchfield. Took it. He said she required less touching up than a 19-year-old model. And then added, we just tidied up a few stray hairs. Quick shave and she was off. Well, this is a rare political story, an election that a Tory is going to win. Theresa May backed David Cameron as Tory leader, saying we could win back groups where support had been lost, such as young people and women, along with old people and men. Malcolm Rifkind was questioned over his use of illegal substances and insisted, I have never taken drugs. I wouldn't normally say this, but seriously, Malcolm, have a go. Paul and Claudia, who's at it again?
Oh.
OK, yes. So this is, of course, David Blunkett. That's... is that Annabelle's?
Yes.
Is that Annabelle's?
Looks quite glamorous. Oh, that's the girl who was naughty because she phoned Max Clifford and pretended that she liked him. That's not her anymore.
So was there a lie detector test going on there? And that's the Channel 4 thing they did the other night, wasn't it?
Yes.
I didn't see it myself. So this is David Blunkett's latest bit of trouble.
It is, it is. We have a name?
For
Sally.
her.
Sally Anderson.
Anderson, good.
Anderson, yes, Sally Anderson. And where did they meet?
Another name is Slapper. She sold the story to Clifford. Don't go, Heath.
He did. And also, he got into a bit of sticky mess because
You're making the dirty jokes up here. We're being clean up here. Yes, he got into a sticky mess, yeah.
Good. Because he was given an honorary membership by Annabelle's because they thought he was charming.
He didn't declare it as one of his parliamentary interests.
He didn't declare it, so he was in trouble about that. The lie detector thing is all about fraud.
The lie detector was for the benefit of it. I mean, anybody who's attempting to defraud the government, Blunkett wants them to take a lie detector test. It'd be interesting, say, for people who took 2 train tickets and declared them as expenses, when one of them was for the woman he was shagging at the time. It'd be interesting, I don't know, for fast-tracking the nanny. Are you or aren't you?
The two of them, they were fixed up there, they met. Can you remember who arranged this?
A man called Tariq Siddiqui. He runs a business which Blunkett actually briefly sat on the board of, which, I mean, and you can't make this up, it does paternity tests. Combining work and pleasure.
The interesting thing about this guy is that he wants to meet Blunkett because he's got some whippets, and he wants to introduce the whippets to Blunkett's dog. So I just got this vision of him having a few pints down Annabelle's and then Blunkett picking the wrong dog to take him home.
If it was a greyhound and it was running that night, you suddenly find yourself coming out of trap 5 at hell of a speed.
Well, there was a car going past with a rabbit in the back window.
It's just another instalment in the affairs of David Blunkett. According to the Mail, Mr Blunkett asked his friends to describe 29-year-old estate agent Sally Anderson, as he didn't quite believe her own description, which claimed she was large upstairs with agreeable views back and front and no doubt a touch damp in the basement. At the height of his affair with Kimberly Quinn, it was suggested that Mr Blunkett had also stolen someone else's girlfriend, Denise Maguire, according to the Mail. At the time, Denise was living with another civil servant, Andy Hurdle, but she soon got over him. And so to round 2. Brace yourselves, it's the picture spin quiz. Fingers on buzzers, teams. Here's your first picture.
Wallace and Gromit, they just had the new film's coming out, but they had a bit of a disastrous fire and they lost a lot of their props. There we are.
It's in Bristol and all. They've lost all of the animals and the bicycles and the penguins.
I know.
Yeah, the big... Bristol penguins.
I think the real problem is they tried to get out, but they moved pretty slowly, those plasticines.
The real tragedy was not only the penguins went and all that, but the Lurpak guy. You remember the Lurpak guy?
Yeah, and
That was
Morph.
sad. Morph.
But the police think Morph did it.
They should have a sort of plasticine Columbo to investigate it.
What are the miniature figures made of?
Highly inflammable plasticine. Goes up like a rocket.
I think we have to give you
Odd plast or something.
the odd mix is actually the
Odd mix.
answer. You're very close. Any idea or anyone interested in knowing how much of it was used in the recent film?
3,000 tonnes.
Well, that's exaggerating. You're taking the piss out of my question, really. So I'm not going to tell you the answer.
Yeah, don't tell him.
I'm not telling. What hasn't Gromit got?
A mouth.
He hasn't got a mouth. He hasn't got. Yes, that's correct. He hasn't got a mouth. If you want to see what the New York Times said about Gromit, they said his face now enters the pantheon of stars whose charisma transcends speech. Keaton, Chaplin, Garbo, Gromit. This is the fire at the Aardman warehouse that destroyed the entire collection of Wallace and Gromit figures and sets. According to the Daily Mail, the Lurpak Butterman was the first to melt, although a post-mortem examination revealed that he'd already died from a fantastically high cholesterol level. Keeping a healthy sense of perspective, Nick Park told The Sun, in light of other tragedies, today isn't a big deal, although The Sun thought differently. Rocky and Ginger, dead. The Tweedies, dead. Douglas from the Lurpak Butterads, dead. Terry the Nervous Octopus, dead. Sporty Frank, dead. Tony Hart's pals, Morph and Chaz, dead. Pickles the Guide Dog, dead. Some Scared Chickens, dead. Sorry, it's like that bit they do in the middle of the BAFTAs. They will all be sorely missed. And made again quite easily, so get over it. So, team, stand by for the next picture.
If that's not a mosquito, I'm wrong. Is that a mosquito?
Well, let's have a look, see if you're wrong.
Yes, yeah.
You are wrong.
It's a grasshopper thinking about the robots in Star Wars.
Oh,
Scientists have identified a part of the grasshopper's brain that solely contains about science fiction. And there's a little tiny part just behind the earlobe. And if you take that bit out, it doesn't think about science fiction at all. You put it back in, it goes on about Doctor Who all night.
Well, frighteningly, you're pretty close to the truth.
Oh, I don't want to know about that. Really?
This is the ignoble prizes, which they do annually alongside the real Nobel Prizes, and they're awarded to genuine research. This picture was awarded a prize for being an experiment that cannot or should not be reproduced. Claire Rind and Peter Simmons of the University of Newcastle upon Tyne got locusts to watch Star Wars and measured their responses. There were...
Well, once you start doing things like that, I mean, there's no end to it, is there? You show an egg a trumpet. No response.
And what did the locusts say? We like the early days when Harrison Ford was in it, but it's rubbish now.
There were other animals you may well be interested to know. There was the Fluid Dynamics Prize went to some bloke for his paper, Pressures Produced When Penguins Poo, Calculations on Avian Defecation, and, well, there's a diagram. I think you should see it.
Do you know simple anatomy, haven't they, penguins?
You know, that was my favourite episode of Pingu, that.
Did anyone see the invention that won the prize for economics?
I did read this, but then I completely forgot about it because I didn't think it'd be any use to me in my particular life.
There's an alarm clock that wakes you up and then runs away and hides itself, so that you have to get out of bed to stop it from...
That's a good idea.
It's not a bad idea. I've got 4 of them. They're called children. The Ig Nobel Prizes are awarded to scientists who have conducted particularly pointless research. One award went to scientists who made a group of locusts watch Star Wars in order to investigate their brain activity. According to the research, the insects responded particularly strongly to the X-Wing fighter planes, and one particularly nerdy locust spotted a continuity error involving Darth Vader's lightsaber. Next picture.
You pressed, didn't you? That looks like a ferret.
Yes, and Burberry, who makes the check stuff that people wear and is a bit...
Bit what?
Not so good. And I think either Burberry are bringing out ferret outfits with hat, or somebody is doing that and it's a rip-off.
You were nearly right. It's not Burberry making the outfits for the ferrets.
It's a copy.
It's someone who's ripping off Burberry. It's called Ferret World. Did I mention that?
And it just sells stuff for ferrets.
That's right.
Sorry, I'm being slow here.
Sorry, it sells...
It just sells ferret outfits.
Yeah, you have a problem with that? Be honest, if you went to Ferret World, you'd be disappointed if it wasn't for ferrets.
Yeah.
So, anyone know what the best-selling item is for the ferrets?
Is it a bikini? It is, isn't it?
It is. Well... yeah, I'm going to go with bikinis.
Yeah, OK.
Their second best-selling item is a waxed jacket.
Is it expensive, this stuff in Ferretland?
No, I don't buy it.
Have you got a catalogue?
I bet it scares the rabbit when it comes down the hole. Yeah. Oh, no, it's a Chad!
If I was a ferret, I'd walk around in a top hat and a little silver cane. How do you do? That's what I do.
Saying, don't you know?
No, hello. I'm a ferret, don't you do?
According to the owner of Ferret World, one of the best-selling ferret costumes is the Phantom of the Opera cape. And if you like the idea of looking at a ferrety face poking out of human clothing, Andrew Lloyd Webber's your man. Moving on to our final picture.
It's Richard and Judy.
Richard and Judy with whom?
Stephen Hawking. He's brought out an even briefer history of time, hasn't he? Because the other one was so difficult to read. Famously, the book that sold millions but was very little read. And Richard was asking him all sorts of questions. Is there life after death? Things like that, you know. I don't think so. Didn't know I was going to do it. It just came out, didn't it? I could have done the Alan Bennett impression and said, I was born in Leeds.
Oh, no, you weren't, Paul. I don't think you were.
Well, that's Mavis. I got that one.
Some of the exchanges on the shows, as you've already picked up on, were quite illuminating. He asked, is there an afterlife? And Stephen Hawking said that belief in an afterlife is just wishful thinking. And Richard replied, oh, that's depressing. I was hoping for a yes there.
Why would Stephen Hawking know for definite?
Ask a scientist, they must know.
Yeah.
And the Telegraph report revealed that Hawking explained Einstein's general theory of relativity seems to offer the possibility that we could warp space-time so much that we could travel back in time. However, it is likely that the warping would trigger a pulse of radiation that would destroy the spaceship and maybe the space-time itself. To which Richard Madeley replied, God! It's Stephen Hawking who finally met his intellectual equals when he appeared on the Richard and Judy show. The show's producers were worried that the interview wouldn't make good TV, what with all the halting delivery and the slurred speech, but Judy managed quite well in the end. At the end of this round, Ian and Tony have 3 points and Paul and Claudia have 6.
Oh, well done. Well done. Really accurate. Sorry about that.
Time now for the odd one out round. Just one between you this week. Austin Mitchell, a boy with a kite, an old man in a T-shirt, and 598 other people.
Well, it doesn't make any kind of sense at all.
It's the Labour conference. It's about getting into it or not.
Yeah.
Austin Mitchell takes pictures of things and he got stopped, but I think was eventually allowed in. Whereas all these people are quite clearly terrorists. Look at that boy. A huge number of people were arrested and stopped going into the conference.
Yeah, except for...
Austin Mitchell.
Except for Austin Mitchell.
Yeah. There's a bit of a story behind the camera, though, with Austin Mitchell. Did you hear about this?
Did you not understand how it works and when he looked at the pictures, they're all close-ups of him?
He was taking pictures, and there was a queue. There was chaos, people, delegates trying to get in. Austin was taking a picture of the queue just for his own scrapbook. And a Labour official said to the police, can you stop him? And the police took the camera, and Austin Mitchell said to the police, don't wipe the photographs. And the police said, we won't, sir. 10 minutes later, when the camera came back, all the pictures were wiped. Police state.
A boy of a kite was refused entry into the Labour Party conference?
He got into trouble for flying his kite on Brighton Beach because they were worried it would be a hazard to air traffic or helicopters. It's mad, isn't it? I mean,
we've all seen that in parks, haven't we? Kids with kites toying with helicopters on the end of them. The helicopter spinning around like the kids just laughing. He doesn't know any better. He doesn't slowly better.
Yeah. The picture of the man with the T-shirt on, what do we know about him, Claudia?
Well, maybe it was a dangerous T-shirt. Did it have a slogan?
It is, yes. I'll tell you what it said, and I quote, Bush, Blair, Sharon to be tried for war crimes, torture human rights, abuse the leaders of rogue states. That's what it said.
He must be a big bloke.
Yeah.
Got that one T-shirt. Have we got footage of the man that was lifted out?
I'm just coming to that.
Right.
Do you remember his name, first of all?
Walter
Wolfgang.
Yeah, Walter Wolfgang, 82-year-old delegate, who shouted nonsense once during Jack Straw's speech on Iraq.
Which I would have thought was a model of restraint.
Yes. Should we have another look at the incident?
Yes, please.
There he goes. Blair did that thing afterwards. He can't stop himself. He went on immediately and said, I'm really sorry, they were all volunteers. I mean, he didn't know, and of course they weren't. They were all paid bouncers, some of whom had criminal records. But he just can't stop lying. Put the camera on, he says, look, they're all volunteers.
Well, there is some footage of one of those bouncers afterwards giving an interview.
Do you think you were too heavy-handed?
Nice cake. Nice cake.
Where was Mr. Wolfgang taken to when he was ejected from the hall?
Police station.
Yeah.
No, it was he was held in the security tent.
There's no way out of here, chaps.
No.
If only they hadn't taken my scissors, I've got to say. Colditz was a tent, you know.
Oh. Should have seen the Velcro on that place.
Yeah.
What else was banned from the conference this year?
Debate.
It was... Good answer, very good answer. Boiled sweets were confiscated from delegates on the grounds that they could be used as missiles.
Oh, is that what was in Iraq?
Yeah.
Piles of boiled sweets.
Yeah, that's it. Werther's originals of mass destruction.
The answer is they were all stopped during the Labour conference by the Brighton police under anti-terror legislation, apart from Austin Mitchell, who just had his camera confiscated. Austin Mitchell is described in Hansard as MP for Great Grimsby, or if you've ever been to Grimsby, Grimsby. Missing Words is the final round, featuring this week's guest publication, The Skip, which calls itself the voice of the UK skip hire industry and gives readers a chance to admire the skip hunk of the month. So here we go. Unearthed the oldest what in the world?
Skip. It's got to be skip, innit?
Pasta.
Very close.
Noodle.
Spaghetti.
Very close.
Is this where you get your stories, out of
Yeah.
skips?
Noodle in a pot.
Minced.
Pot noodle.
Hot noodle.
Pot noodle, Paul.
Yeah. That's not so much a clue as the answer.
Noodle in a pot, you've got to change it around.
Archaeologists in China have discovered a 4,000-year-old bowl of noodles. Apparently it was found in a fossilised student bedsit underneath the traffic cone. Next, with this what I thee wed?
Somebody said skip over there. If it's right, he gets a point. Is it onion?
Wolfgang at the back shouted it out, and he
Skip,
was right.
skip.
Skip, yeah.
Yeah.
It is skip. This is...
We need to get another box, because you've got 1 point now.
Yeah. This is a story from the Skip magazine about bridegroom Brent Johnson, who arrived at his wedding in a skip wagon. A poignant moment for Brent because his grandfather passed away in 1993 and a skip wagon brought his coffin to the same church. What a rubbish family. Next, man in flip-flops says what?
Pish-posh the tip-tops. I mean, a man in flip-flops, could be anything. Says, that's the last time I hire a skip, next time I'm going to buy one.
He says, you've stepped on my foot.
Didn't say that.
Did he say, at least Blunkett said they look good?
Man in flip-flops says, I walked through Channel. This is the man who walked to France through the Channel Tunnel wearing flip-flops, according to The Sun. He amazed the authorities by dodging the trains. Although, to be fair, dodging trains isn't all that hard once you've understood the concept of rails. Next, every 35 seconds, somebody somewhere will be...
35 seconds older.
Good answer.
We'll be hiring a skip.
Yes.
Well, not hiring a skip as it happens.
Taking it back.
Doing the other thing.
Buying a skip.
No. Fly tipping.
Oh,
Yeah,
right, yes.
See what I meant? From the Skip magazine, the story of one man, Wayne Barris, who managed to dump 15 tons of rubbish on the streets of Leeds. Funny enough, nobody noticed. And finally, Vatican will require new gay priests to what their what?
Rinse their font. Gotta be, isn't it?
Hold their own.
Polish their tabernacles.
Is it sell their Pet Shop Boys albums?
Is it prove their celibacy?
You're quite right. Well done for getting that.
How do you prove your celibacy?
I just sleep with a ferret, I never get anything.
That's not celibacy, though.
Something else.
It is if the ferret says no.
No, not tonight. Do we have to? I thought I might go to my club.
The heads of the world's Catholic seminaries were surprised by the new Pope's latest ruling, or as they put it, oh, get her. That brings us to the end of the show, and the final scores are as follows. Ian and Tony have 7. Paul and Claudia have 10.
Oh, well done. Congratulations.
But before we go, there's just time for the caption competition.
54 days in, Magic Gnome still pissing.
I think we might have to leave it at that.
I think you're probably right, Ian. On which note, we say thank you to our panellists, Ian Hislop and Tony Livesey, Paul Merton and Claudia Winkelman. And I leave you with the news that after a practice drill in New Orleans, residents remain unconvinced by George Bush's new flood avoidance scheme. After the incident at the Labour conference in Brighton, party officials insist that the 82-year-old heckler's complaint has been dealt with. And there are signs that as he prepares for an official tour of the United States, Prince Charles is looking more and more like his mother. Good night.